Once again, back, it's the incredible Dale Valor's Inner Game Podcast. I'm rapper turned dating coach Dale Valor, your inner game wingman. Listen, here's the deal. If you're new to this podcast, what we're talking about is inner game. What is inner game? Inner game is the relationship that you have with you. If all the other relationships in your life are suffering, in large part, and usually it's due to the relationship that you have with you sucks, right? So if you don't like yourself, how can you expect anybody else to either? So here's the deal, man. We're going to go deep on so many inner game concepts in this podcast. I really am glad that you're here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a long timer, welcome back. And let's hop in. Once again, I am excited. And I know I say this every single time because I'm always excited to be able to come on here, do Dale. All right, take two.
Classic.
I got to let my editor know because he will just gloss right over that.
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, once again, back, it's the incredible, and I am excited. Once again, I know I say that all the time, but it is true because I'm always excited to come in here, kick it with you guys, have on awesome guests like my man, Chris Goode here. This guy, we connected over social media, what was it, a week ago? Something like that, week and a half ago. And I really resonated with what it is that he does. First and foremost, I know you're an NLP guy, which every time it comes up that somebody knows a thing or two about NLP, I'm like, it's almost like what's crazy about NLP is, to me, at least, I don't know about you, Chris and Shabam. Shabam, you're not much of an NLP guy, are you?
Actually, I've studied a lot of it. I mean, not a lot, but like enough of it. Yeah, I just studied it. I didn't I wasn't that deep into it. But like in the initial, when I actually started reading on Pickup and all, I actually like for example, Ross Jeffries' content and all.
Yeah.
It's like heavily referenced from,
Yeah,
like
I get you.
So yep. I just.
Okay, so, but to me, it's almost like NLP is kind of like a secret society of like, when I find out somebody knows a thing or two about NLP, I'm always like, we have commonality. But this guy, Chris, is a breakup expert coach. If you take his coaching, he will not break up with you. But
no breakups.
But nonetheless, I thought it would be great to have him on, considering Valentine's Day is right here, and a lot of you guys, you're looking to get into relationships and things like that. It's that time of year, and you're seeing it everywhere. All the little. What are those little naked baby angels called with the bow and arrow?
Cupids.
Yeah.
Cupids.
You're seeing all the little cupids and the little hearts everywhere, and you're thinking back to elementary school with the little candies, with the little, will you be mine message on it and all that kind of stuff. And it makes you thinking like, hey, I really want to get into a relationship, but unfortunately, most relationships are not going to work out, right? Once you find that one that, that you're going to wife up or you're going to be in a long-term relationship with, or whatever the case may be, once that's cemented, all the previous relationships, right? Those all had to have came to an end at some point, right? So you're going to have way more that don't work out than do. All right. So that's why what Chris does is so fundamentally important, because we don't talk enough, in my opinion, about breaking up, how ending a relationship. What does that look like psychologically? What does that look like in the practical sense, And so these are all things that we're going to definitely get into. And as always, I have my trusted confidant, Shabam. Well, I shouldn't say always, because sometimes you miss, but usually here, like trusted confidant Shabam. And Chris, man, thanks again, dude, for coming on with me, coming on with us, and talk about this particular topic, man, that I just don't think gets brought up enough. How did you find that that was your lane? You know, have you been through like a million breakups and you're like, let me compile this information?
Yeah. No, I think for myself and before I rattle off on this, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. But getting into this particular lane, I realized that like there's a lot of information that's out there with like how to get your ex back and like things of that nature, and I found it to be some of it to be manipulative and some of it to be like the coaches know that it's not going to work, and so they're just offering advice that's ultimately helping a person get away from their ex. And I just felt like let's just cut to the chase. You broke up with your ex. The chances of you two getting back together are unlikely. And the faster that you come to terms with that, the more likely you're going to be able to recover rapidly and get back to a place where you can feel comfortable reaching out to, dating other people instead of like being consumed by this person that used to be in your life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. The way I see it is there's usually three different types of mindsets coming out of a relationship. And, there could be factors involved. How long was the relationship? How healthy was the relationship? How unhealthy was the relationship? There's a lot of moving parts here. But to me, it seems to be three different mindsets. One is, how can I get her back? Right? How can I make this work? Right? Maybe the dude got dumped or whatever. And if I just change my behaviors, if I just change who I am, if I just X, Y, and Z, maybe there's a chance here that this can work out again. Right? Then you have the pretty much like, fuck her, like she dumped me, blah, 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 or, she cheated on me, or I broke up with her because she's not, pulling her weight or whatever, right? So then you have that dynamic. And then you have kind of the middle ground that's pretty much like, is what it is, like things just didn't work out. And so I'm going to keep moving forward. I find that third mindset to be the least of the three. You know what I mean? It's actually some type of spite or some type of, how can I get this back on track, right? So what I wanted to do is kind of go into those mindsets a little bit. What would you say to somebody who is like, we had this good relationship and, maybe there's some fundamental differences. Maybe she wants to have kids and he doesn't. And so there's a rift there. And that's a pretty important rift,
Yeah.
But, there's just some fundamental difference. Nothing nefarious, not like she cheated on me or something like that, but just, just fundamental differences, right? And then he says, well, how can I still make this work? How can I get her back? And he's doing the creepy thing of, constantly spying on her social medias and standing out in the bushes with binoculars or whatever,
Yeah.
What would you tell that guy?
Well, I think that the problem in that situation is the person's unwillingness to accept reality as it is. Because it's this resistance against the way that things are that's causing this person this just continued suffering. They're not willing to adapt to their current circumstances. Their ex doesn't share the same values or beliefs as them, and that's caused a rift in the relationship to where they're parting ways, and this person wants to try to conform reality into their image, but that's just not the way that the universe works. If the wind blows hard enough, you're going to be moving with it, and the faster that you learn to go with things, and I'm not saying that there's never time when resistance isn't applicable, but for the most part, when you're willing to move with things, you're going to be a lot better off than trying to force things to work out the way that you want them to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what would be some of those circumstances in which it might be a good idea to see if you could make things work?
So I think that what's critical when a relationship's coming to an end and that you don't want the relationship to come to an end is to state it. You can simply say something along the lines of, I really think that this isn't a good idea. Like, I think that this isn't the best decision. I want to remain in a relationship and I really believe that this can work out. I do respect your decision to want to, part ways, and, that saddens me, but I can't make you want to be with me unless you choose to be with me. So in that way, you're stating your position, you're standing firm, you're standing strong, but you're not, you're not making yourself, desperate. You're not diminishing your worth and trying to shift, trying to shift things in a way just to make yourself feel better about the loss.
Yeah. I think if a guy is selling himself out, like going against what I guess his true identity is and where his convictions lie and things like that in order to make a relationship work, I mean, that's obviously problematic. That's going to make for harboring resentment later on and things like that. And I think I love what you said there, man, because, you're not coming at it from a vantage point of neediness or like Shaban said, desperation, you're coming at it from a position of strength, really. You're saying what it is that you would like, but it takes two to tango. You can't twist her arm. You can't, hold a gun to her head and demand it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, you're coming at it from look, this is what I want. If you want to get on board with that, let's go. If you don't, that's your prerogative. And
exactly.
I agree 100% with what you're saying. I work with a lot of guys who, are coming out of divorce or have been divorced. And I mean, that could have been for some guys 30 years ago. For some guys, it's 3 days ago, and so, there's varying, I guess, time lengths and obviously the longer you have, generally speaking, the more time there is for acceptance and, changing perspectives and things like that. But what I find is, in particularly guys who are going through a divorce or pretty much fresh out of a divorce, we'll say 2 years or less, really come out of it with like a what I consider to be a very unhealthy mindset of, like all women are bitches. They're just out for your money. They're, X, Y, and Z, whatever derogative ideal that you want to fill in the blank with. I don't know if you encounter that a lot, but what would you say to a guy who's coming out of something like that and is, they're consuming a lot of red pill content. I'm not a big red pill guy, and albeit I do believe there are some truths in it, but there's some truths in everything, So, what would you say to that guy that's hanging on to that mindset like that?
I think that kind of way of thinking can be very self-destructive, and you end up creating a world that's a very dark place, where you literally cannot trust half the population. There's like an animosity and a hostility there. And the worst part is you're going to find the evidence that you believe is there at the expense of everything else, because it's just the way that the mind's looking for patterns. And we will create cognitive distortions in which, if you believe that all women are bad, what are you going to be looking for? Reasons to believe that all women are bad, confirmation bias.
Right.
And the sad thing about that is, unless you have the awareness of that cognitive bias, it's going to continue to reinforce itself. And so 1 year of thinking women are terrible turns into 5 years and 10 years. And the next thing you know is you're a miserable, old human being who's lonely and has nothing, like no family and nothing of that nature. And so it's just, you really take away from yourself the opportunity to experience the richness of a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful about that overgeneralization, of anything and anyone.
Yeah, no doubt. It's so funny, man. I had a friend of mine who, with cognitive bias, and this is a very clear-cut example. I've told this story on a couple of occasions on the podcast here, but I'll say it again. I got a buddy of mine, one of my best friends in the world, and he was, going out with this girl. It was, pretty serious. He was thinking about proposing to her and all this and that. But he was seeing some red flags, or at least his definition of red flags. And he comes to me and he's like, Dale, man, I don't know what to do, man. Like there's so many good things here, but then there's these other things here. Do I just kind of look the other way with that? Or do I, really take these things into consideration and stuff like that? And based on what he told me, and I don't even really remember what it was, but I do know that I told him, I was like, man, look, I'll support you, whatever it is that you want to do. If you get married to her, I'm not going to say boo about it, or anything like that. But based on what you're telling me, I think it would be a mistake, And so he breaks up with her. Okay. And so a couple weeks go by and he gives me a call and he's like, man, Dale, I don't know, man. I think I made a huge mistake. I'm seeing all these signs from the universe that are just, bringing her to the forefront of my mind. And this is fresh, like it just happened. Mm-hmm. He just broke up with her after a long-term relationship with this woman, and I was like, what are these signs that you're seeing? And he's like, man, I keep seeing her car everywhere. Not her actual car. It's not like she was following him, but the same make and model. And I'm like, okay, well, what kind of car is it? And he's like, a red Toyota Corolla. And I'm like, okay, dude, like the most common car on planet Earth. You know what I mean? Like most common color, and I'm like, all right, man, look, all those red Toyota Corollas that you've been seeing recently, guess what? You've been seeing them since Toyota Corollas have rolled off the assembly line, it's just, you didn't notice them before because it was inconsequential to you, but now it is. And that's why you're noticing it now. There's no difference, it's not a sign. It's just, this is a fresh wound, if you will. And you're just seeing reminders because it's fresh, it's new, And so, that cognitive bias is what, like you said, man, so many guys just hang on to that and look for these reasons. They look for any little nook and cranny of any type of, something that they can even misconstrue as something that's a red flag when it really isn't, like, oh, I saw that she's friends with a high school guy or a guy that she went to high school with 20 years ago. And it's like, come on, man, really?
Yeah.
You're her Facebook friend from 20 years ago. Like, give me a break, like you're just looking for reasons,
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I couldn't agree more, man. So, one thing I thought was like super interesting is the fact that, you're in Mongolia right now. Like, you're the one white guy in all of Mongolia. Like,
there's not too many of us.
Odds are in your favor.
Now, like you was telling me, like your wife is like what, the most famous actress in Mongolia?
Yeah. My wife's she is a celebrity here in Mongolia, and well, yeah, it's definitely an unusual experience. It's not something that I ever thought that I would find myself in. Yeah, I remember when she told me when we were first like dating and stuff, and I was just I really didn't care. Like it didn't. I was like, well, that's kind of cool, I guess. But like, tell me more about you. Cause are you okay? Are you a good person? You're not gonna rip my heart out and throw it on the floor. The interesting thing was, prior to meeting my wife, I was right there. I had met her previously, but like before dating her, I was like right there where I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to become a monk. I'm going to shave my head and just meditate for the rest of my life. And of course, the last like connection and stuff, and we start talking, and one thing turns into another. And, next thing I know, I'm in a long distance relationship, and then I go to Mongolia, and then I propose, and it's just like, here we are.
How did you meet?
Through Equinox. It's a luxury gym, and I was a sales, like membership sales there.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. And so she came in, and I was just like, wow. But I'm doing my job, so I'm not gonna try to pull a date off on somebody I'm selling a membership to. But we ended up reconnecting over social media, and then the rest is history.
All right. Yeah. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. You know what I love that you said there is that you didn't really care, that she's a celebrity. I mean, albeit in another country, but nonetheless, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I tell guys all the time, when you encounter, like I've had the opportunity to date, not household name celebrities, you know what I mean? But, actresses that have been in stuff, and, one of them told me one time, because I'm nobody famous, you know what I mean? I'm not, I'm just Joe Blow, you know what I mean? I mean, I do some cool stuff, but I mean, it's not, I'm certainly not, Instagram famous or anything like that. Right. So, one of these girls had told me that basically one of the reasons that she liked me was the fact that I didn't really care. I mean, I cared, but kind of like yourself, like, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? But I didn't turn into fanboy mode. Like, oh my God, tell me everything about that,
Yeah.
And she was like, there's two different guys that she typically will have interactions with. The first guy being the A-lister, A-list celebrity guy who kind of feels like it's owed to them, like, of course you want to date me, like I'm such and such, you know what I mean? Where they're like, you should feel obligated. You should feel honored that I'm even giving you a moment of my time, that kind of thing. Or B, the guy that's, as soon as he finds out that she's on this show or whatever, automatically turns into fanboy, And she was like, you kind of have the best of both worlds in that you're not like the A-lister celebrity, but you have like some of those characteristics, and you're not, you're over here as a normie, but at the same time, you're not turning into where it's just all love bombing and admiration and, like all that kind of thing, putting her on a pedestal, so to speak,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what you said just goes to show, man, like as long as you don't, you treat people with respect and kindness and all that, but as long as you're not treating her like, oh, you're a celebrity, let me treat you as I think a celebrity should be treated. As long as you don't fall into that trap, it goes so much better. It just works out way better if you do it that way. I think I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit, but shifting gears, one of the things that I see is that guys are often, I mean, this is probably true across the board, but our audience is men primarily. So, but guys tend to be bad enders. When a relationship isn't working out, either they don't have the balls to end it, or so it just persists for far too long, or they just ghost, disappear, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like actually having a conversation, or like just ending it in a respectful way, or you know, how would you recommend that a guy who's like, man, this really isn't working out? How would you coach a guy up to end that relationship in the best feasible way?
I think going into having the right expectations around that, of course, it's going to be an uncomfortable experience. You know, especially if you're the one who's ending it, the other person probably doesn't want the relationship to end. And so when you go to speak with them, and definitely have an in-person conversation, or at the very least, like if it's long distance, a video conversation, don't text them. Like, you know, just give them some respect, just like you would want them to respect you. You know, be a man with some dignity and some value and some virtue. And as you talk to them, you want to be truthful, but you want to be skillful with the truth, which means delivery does matter. You don't want to beat them over the head with a blunt object and be like, look, this relationship's over. I'm tired of you, and I haven't wanted to be in a relationship with you for the past like years. You know, it's like you don't need to obliterate them. There's a way to say like, look, I found myself to be rather unhappy, and I think I owe it to you and to myself to make sure that we're both getting the best out of this relationship. And if it's not working, the last thing I want you to do is think that I'm okay here when I'm not, because you deserve somebody who's really just as invested as you have been in me towards yourself. And, you know, expect some waterworks, expect to not be the best, but, you know, and I would probably encourage some distance, you know, and some space. And I would set some like boundaries, just because they probably want to continue communicating with you. But is that going to be best for them? Probably not. They probably need some time to detach and, you know, explain like, look, I don't hate you. This is just for our own good. And, you know, maybe in several months down the line, we can talk again, like, you know, when there's not feelings attached to it and stuff. But right now, this is what's best.
You know, yeah, I agree. You have a really level-headed approach that, you know, with what, if somebody was saying exactly what you said, that would be very level-headed, right? A lot of times, like you said, expect tears, you know, what if this girl that this guy's breaking up with is just like, you know, she's just flying off the handle, you know,
got borderline personality disorder or something.
You know, calling you out your name and I, you know, blah blah blah. You got a little dick and you know, like, you know,
she's going for it.
Yeah, but that's actually the best proof, right? Like, you know, you need to get out of there. Like, come on, like,
well, but
how would you crazy? So, yeah.
How would you like? How do you handle that when things are kind of like it's starting to? You're trying to be level-headed. You're trying to act with respect. You're trying to not twist the knife. You know, you're taking the high road. You know, and she's not. Like, would you suggest like, look, I said my piece. I'm out of here. Or you try to console her, calm her down? Like, what would be the best approach there?
You know, I think when you're dealing with somebody that's as emotionally erratic as you just described, it's probably going to be best to remain calm, because the last thing you want to do is add, you know, fuel to the flames. Getting angry at them is not going to help. Even if they started attacking you, you think of a martial artist, like a really good martial artist. When they're getting attacked, they're like an MMA fighter. They keep calm, cool, and collected, because that's what allows them to make the best possible choices. And that's what we should strive for as men. With anything in life, you know, whether it's dealing with peers, colleagues, but certainly relationships, and definitely our romantic relationships. And keep your calm, keep your cool, And if you realize that it's just getting a little too spicy, she's throwing a bit of a fiesta, then dip out. Just tell her like, look, it appears to me that I am incapable of having a conversation with you right now. I was hoping to share these things with you, but I'm going to go. Or, you might not even be able to say that, like, look, I have to go. This is just not okay. I'm going to leave. If you want to talk later, maybe, but you'll have to decide what's best for you. It's like, I can't, every situation, every context is going to differ, but I would protect yourself, especially if things are heating up that bad. It's probably not going to end very well if you stay.
Yeah.
Do you recommend going no contact? Like after you break up, or you like, let me block you on social media, so no contact.
So I think this really, it depends. Like it just depends. I mean, you can't, in certain contexts, you can't, like if you're getting a divorce, or you have kids or something like that, that would be a situation that's probably you're not going to be able to use no contact. The value of no contact is in the ability of essentially, it's like withdrawing from a substance. You're giving yourself time and space away from it so that it no longer dominates you and has an effect on you. And you're going to have to learn to deal with unpleasant emotions and thoughts that arise internally. There's a lot of things that you can do to help that, things as simple as exercise and movement, or things like meditation, or cold or heat shock therapy, just to introduce yourself to uncomfortable stimuli. So that way, when you feel the need to reach out to them because you miss them, you're like, oh, I've been taking a cold shower every morning. This really isn't that bad. I'm not going to talk to them, because that's just going to start this whole situation over again.
Yeah.
So no contact. If you believe that that's the best thing that you can do, I would generally recommend it. I would generally recommend it. Doesn't mean you got to block them, but you might need to mute their stories, or get them out of sight, out of mind, so that you don't have that thing that's stoking you constantly.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be like, hey, I keep seeing her car.
Yeah. And this is especially if you are the guy that got dumped. Like if you dumped her, chances are you are not because see, the reality is whoever does the breaking up is mentally prepared to do it, right? Like that's always the case, right? Whenever a girl also breaks up, she has been thinking about it for a while. She's literally mentally prepped to, do the breakup. You are the guy who just suddenly got banged against a wall, and you're like, okay, that hurts, sort of thing, So for you, like you said, out of sight, out of mind, that's the best way to put it. Straight up.
Yeah. That's a really good point. There's going to be an obvious psychological difference if I'm dumping somebody, it's because of, it could be anything, but, in essence, I'm holding on to the power of if this relationship is going to happen or not, and if she's the one that's dumping me, that role has reversed, so what, when a guy is coming out of a relationship, let's take it two different ways here. So if the guy is dumped, hey, the girl's like, things aren't working out, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see you anymore. For the next 90 days, what would you recommend that he do, to kind of, regain his self-esteem, his sense of power and individuality, and things like that?
Yeah. So, regaining a sense of confidence requires evidence, and so that means that you need to build a case for yourself as to why you should believe in you, which is generally why doing things that are going to make it easy for you to see progress is important. That's also going to reintroduce that feeling of power. That's what is power. Power is our ability to influence and control reality. And when you're exercising, you're moving your body, you're experiencing physical changes, your health's improving, your mental well-being's improving. So it's a very easy way to reestablish that. Things like meditation can be profoundly helpful in terms of allowing us to be less reactive to what we're experiencing. It's wild to me, just because I've been practicing meditation for quite some time now, so it's normal. But a lot of people's experiences, they have a thought, they experience the emotion, and they're just carried with it. And the thoughts come up and the emotions come up, and it's just like chasing rabbits. But when you become proficient with meditation, you get to the point where you observe the rabbit and you just let it go in the hole.
Yeah.
You feel the emotion, you see the thought, and you're not carried away by it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't always affect you. It gives you sort of some space, and that space is what gives us a unique power to change the direction that our day is going to go. So that way, a thought in the morning about how you and your ex were together for 2 years and you're remembering all the happy times, doesn't derail you and makes you want to reach out to them. So I think those two things would certainly be profoundly helpful. Getting back, if you've lost your sense of self to the point where you've spent all your time with this person, there's no you. There's no identity of what it means to be, me, this person I am. Then really it's about getting back on a journey of self-discovery. What are you passionate about? What do you think you could be passionate about? What did you used to like prior to dating or early on in dating? What were the things that you engaged in? Who were the kind of people that you hung around with? And maybe you're in a situation where you're just like, you know what? I really don't know. I have no idea. And you just feel like you're kind of lost in space. Well, here's the great thing about that. You don't need to be discouraged. While it certainly can be painful to not have like a sense of self, you have the wonderful opportunity to create a sense of self. And so you simply look to the people that you admire the most. It could be some like profound figure in history. It could be a famous person. It could be an author or a teacher. It could be somebody that's really close to you, like a parent or something. And you could start to do the things needed to become more like that person. You could start engaging in the activities that they engage in. And then the next thing you know, it's like not only do you look up to that person, but you've turned into that person.
Yeah.
So who can you look up to now?
Well, man, I know that you got a lot of information out of this particular episode. Listen, if you need to go a little bit deeper, always feel free to reach out to me. Look, there's a few ways you can do that. You can shoot me an email. You can send me a DM. I'm easy to find. But the best place that you can find me is at freegiftfromdale.com. It's in the description of the episode. And you're going to get a couple of free gifts there. You'll get the first chapter of my book, Inner Game. And you will also find an exercise to help you find out about yourself and who you really, truly are at the core. Okay. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to the channel or the podcast, make sure you do so, man. It takes you 1 second to do it. It means the world to us here. Okay. If you know somebody who could really use this information, feel free to share it, man. Don't hold it to yourself. You know what I mean? So we will see you in the next one.